Welcome everybody. For those being new, welcome for the first time. Good to meet you. Hopefully you're gonna learn an awful lot over the next hour here. We got some special giveaways like we usually do. Again, if this is your first time, we always try to we give preferential treatment to those that turn out live to see us. And for those of you that have seen us before, we have a very special surprise tonight. We're both here together.
We're actually at a conference in Spokane, the beautiful Spokane, Washington. Maybe we have somebody on here from Spokane. So we are together. So people that have seen us before, I'm usually in Seattle and he's usually in Boston. So we are together working the conference. So we are coming to you live and together. Yeah, well, take a minute. Somebody just did it. Put in the chat where, we got to enable the chat. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, you got to do it because you took away. I can't.
Where are you? Where in the country are you?
And then Jersey. That's where I'm from. Nice. Wisconsin, Arkansas. Nice. It's always fun to see. We got people from all over the country, which is so cool.
Yeah, we
Seattle.
We were gonna go do this in our own hotel room. We're like, you know what? We never get to do this in the same space. So let's see if we can figure it out. And then this is actually a conference for school counselors called the Super ACAC. So we're here with, I don't know, several hundred at least, or maybe more, 1,000 high school counselors from all the, I guess, Pacific Northwest and the West Coast, right? So maybe some of your school counselors are here tonight. Yeah, we've been having a lot of great conversations, trying to figure out, get on the same team and help figure out how to make this whole college thing as affordable as possible. So, so I guess quickly, here's some housekeeping stuff, right? I know everybody's using the chat right now and we appreciate it. As a matter of fact, let me ask you one more question. What's the class of your student? I think for the most part, we're talking the 2024s, but are there some overachievers, 25s, 26s? Do we have any couple of 23s at the finish line? Yeah, kind of as expected, mostly 24s. And you 24s will be the focus tonight. I mean, we're really talking to you, but if you're class 2025 or younger, certainly there's going to be some stuff that's going to be applicable here and maybe more than you might expect, right? And sooner than you might expect. And even for your 23s, hopefully there can still be some takeaways that aren't too late to implement. So this will be recorded, like we said. We'll make sure that we get you that tomorrow. Do stick around to the end because we got some giveaways that again, we kind of only hook up our live registrants with. So try to if you can, and then you'll get the deck tomorrow as well. But questions, please put them in the Q&A, right? Whichever one of us is not talking, we're going to kind of be living in that Q&A, and this is an unbelievable opportunity to get all your questions answered, right? They can't be too stupid, they can't be too complex. You can be anonymous in there, so if you want to ask something that's really kind of personal to you, this is a great opportunity to do it, right? So no, this is not through Smart Track.
Yeah, we are not Smart Track.
Yeah,
we are College Aid Pro.
Right. Yeah. Good call. Yes, we're College Aid Pro. So I guess on that note, I'll quickly introduce myself before I pass it to my buddy here. But my name is Matt Carpenter. Like Peg said at the top, I'm from Boston, out here on the West Coast for this conference, and coming to you from the West Coast tonight, which I know a lot of you are. This is your territory here, but I've been doing this whole financial aid scholarship world my entire career. So I'm really very close to 20 years here. So just about 2 decades. So I just have a ton of experience in guiding families through this from kind of where you are at the beginning when it really is kind of game time, right up through, we're almost setting our class 2023 families off, right? We still have a couple of folks got to make their decision by May 1st, and then we'll coach them up on how to pay this bill. But that's our job, and it's challenging, but it's one of the most rewarding jobs you can. I feel very grateful to be able to guide families through such a huge challenge, but such a rewarding deal, right? I mean, we're constantly having to remind everybody, and let me do it right now, that hey, yes, this is stressful, yes, this is overwhelming, but we're helping send your kids to college, right? It's a great thing at the end of the day, right? And But there is some right and wrong ways to navigate this thing, and I think we're really good at showing families the right way. And that's what we're here to do here tonight. Show you, number one, how it works. Number two, how does your family fit in the spectrum, and kind of what path should you be on? So, and like I said, I'm psyched to be here with Peggy. It's always fun to be in person. And again, for those of you that have seen us before, this is the fairy godmother of financial aid. I'm in, amongst royalty here. But for those of you that don't, you're in great hands. And Peg says all the time, and I can say it for her, in addition to guiding families through this, she's done it herself. So I think she brings that perspective that is hopefully helpful. I think it is.
Yep. So yeah, my background is I was a financial advisor, financial planning. And then when my kids hit high school, kind of did a deep dive into all this and realized how crazy complex it is. And so I kind of, instead of focusing on all of financial planning, I just focused on this and started my own business. And then I joined College Aid Pro almost a couple of years ago. So, but as Matt Carp said, I have twins. So I went through this with my two kids and just really gets me out of bed to help families through this. So let me share my screen here and go back to the beginning of the presentation. Sorry, we were looking through it. I should have had that up there. Okay, so in reference to the question that came through, we are College Aid Pro. And this is literally our mission, to end the student loan crisis by empowering families to shop smarter for college. And what does that mean? It means educating you so that you are an informed consumer. The more you know about this process, the better you can navigate it, the better you can set expectations for your kids. It just doesn't have to be as stressful as it is for a lot of families. And I'm saying that parent to parent, because it wasn't. Sure, my kids were paying here and there, and it wasn't smooth sailing the whole time, but I didn't have a lot of the stresses that I see a lot of families have. And so that's where parents really come in. If you understand, and that's where we try and step in and support you. We know the journey you're on, and this webinar is the first of our webinars that we do. This is for freshmen, sophomore, and junior parents. I know we have all of you on here. Just to understand what's coming up and to understand where you fit, basically. That's half the battle right there. All right. I don't have my mouse, so here we go. There we go. So there we are. Your presenters actually together. Sorry, we're a little excited to be together here. So everybody should have gotten an email that encouraged you to set up your free MyCAP account. So you see the URL there. If you want to just pop that in the chat.
Yeah, I did.
Matt, he probably already did. So you can click on it and set up your free account. We'll be in there as part of educating you guys tonight. But it's really good to set that up, because then you'll be looking at your account, and that all ties into becoming an informed consumer and understanding financial aid, and then where you fit, which is the second piece, which is even more important than understanding the system in general. So go ahead and take care of that. So let's talk about financial aid. So basically, the first thing I want you to understand, and it's a little counterintuitive, it's a little weird. We all know that college costs have been going up for decades, right? And the most expensive schools now, if you're not aware, are literally $90,000 for a class of 2024, if you're paying full sticker price. And we're here to tell you that that sticker price is really irrelevant. So if you know what you're doing, you'll be able to get discounts on the cost of college. And all the colleges are discounting. It's just a matter of how they do it. And these first two buckets on our slide are the two things you want to capitalize on. So the need-based grants, as the name kind of hints to, if you have financial need, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you will get what's called need-based grants from the colleges. That's basically their endowment money that they're giving you. They decide on your need and they give it to you. That's the free stuff. That's the stuff you don't have to pay back. That's what you really want to get. We call it gift aid. The second bucket that's in the aqua box, the merit-based scholarships, that's the second gift aid bucket. So it's the opposite. It's not based on financials. It's based on your child. It's based on grades, test scores, athletics, talent, whatever that college does. And we'll talk about each one of these types of aid in a minute. The third bucket is self-help. So this is the loans and the work study. And this is a part of a lot of people's college funding strategies. That's fine. It's just not the free stuff, right? You either have to pay it back or your child's going to work for it and actually get a paycheck. So not a bad thing, but those are the three ways that this cost of attendance, this sticker price, will be discounted. So let's talk about the need-based aid first. So there's a pretty simple formula that the colleges use. We have the cost of attendance, which is the sticker prices, tuition and fees, room and board, books, personal expenses, and travel. Those are your 5 buckets. We have no control over that, right? It's been going up and we can't control it. The next thing is they calculate something that up to this point has been called an expected family contribution, EFC. For all of you on this webinar, except for, I thought I saw one 2023 in here, when for this coming year, the 23-24 school year, it's still called the expected family contribution. That's what was referenced on your FAFSA. But the next FAFSA, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's basically just a name change. It's nothing to get stressed about. Student Aid Index, SAI instead. So people aren't confused. We have both of them on the deck. Pretty soon it's just going to say SAI. So they subtract the SAI/EFC, and that's how you get your need. So if the school costs $90,000 and you have an EFC of $110,000, which Matt and I have seen families with EFCs at that level, you have no need. So you're not going to get need-based aid at any school. If you have an EFC or SAI of $40,000 at that same school, you now have $50,000 of need-based aid eligibility. It doesn't mean the college is going to say, here you go, Jones family, here's your $50K. That you have to figure out how each school does that, but you do have need. Over half the people that I've worked with through the years, and Matt's might even be higher, don't have need-based eligibility. It doesn't mean that you don't have planning to do. I'm sure you don't want to pay $90,000 a year for college. So how does this get calculated? There's 2 buckets. There's assets and there's income, and they look at the student and the parents. So for the assets, the biggest takeaway here is that it's non-retirement assets only. So 401ks, Roth IRAs, 403bs, pensions, that's all retirement. So that is not part of the calculation. Anything else is. So real estate, that's not your primary home that you live in. I'll talk about that in a minute. CDs, a bond portfolio, stock, and a brokerage account, all of that is on the table. A big question that we get is, well, what about my 529s? Or you have a college savings account of some sort. Typically, that's set up with the parent as the owner and your child as the beneficiary. Well, that is an asset of the parent. It's the owner, not the beneficiary. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make on the financial aid forms, and it kills them because parent assets are assessed a little bit less than 6 as a max, but student assets are 20 or 25%. So really big difference there. So that's a huge takeaway for you 24 parents when you're going to be filling out forms. 529s are yours. If grandma owns the 529, doesn't even go on the asset question. People will say, well, you know what? I have credit card debt. I have car loans. I have student loans. That's not asked about on the FAFSA, but you should always share. And that's a whole webinar in and of itself when you're appealing and sharing with the colleges. You definitely need to share anything that's a strain on cash flow, basically. So bottom right corner, your home that you live in. There is one of the forms we're going to talk about that does require you to share the market value of your home, your mortgage, when you bought it, what you bought it for. You don't want to overvalue your home. So you don't want to lie, but you just want to find out the lowest reasonable price, sale price, like you got to sell it yesterday price. And then there's something called the IRS quick sale value. And as you know, if you've sold a home, you don't realize all that money. There's closing costs, there's realtors. So you can take 15 to 20% off that. You don't want to go so low that it's crazy and the college looks at it and it's obviously wrong and they go digging, right? They can go on Zillow. It's not that hard. So, but just keep that in mind, because sometimes people, you don't want to put the price you really want to get when you stage it and you wait for the perfect offer. So just keep that in mind. So that's the assets, and assets are assessed literally, if you want to be that precise, the day you hit submit on the form. So it's real time. Income is the other piece.
One thing I'll just add in terms of the student assets versus parent assets, right? I bet a decent percentage of you, there's a student savings account, right? And maybe you're both on it. What we would recommend, because even if let's say there's 10 grand in there, 20 grand in there, and you just have industrious kids or from their, first communion, bar mitzvah, whatever, they have 10 grand in there. It's not a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. If it's in the parent's name, it won't have any impact on your EFC or financial aid eligibility, right? When you go to report that, if it's $10,000 in the parent's name. But if it's in the student's name, even that $10,000 amount is enough to move them in terms of aid eligibility. So that's just, to me, kind of a low-hanging fruit to say, hey, here's something that we have control over, that we can make sure that we report it as a parent asset as opposed to a student asset by the time we submit these financial aid applications. And again, even in that example of a relatively low amount, it can make a difference.
Yeah, guys, just remember, put your question, just copy them and put them over in the Q&A as
Right.
opposed to the chat. Okay, so now let's talk about income. Income is the biggest, parental income is the biggest driver by far in this formula. And unlike the assets that are real time, income is assessed in what we call prior year. So it's a 2-year look back. So you see what we have on the slide here, class of 2024. The easiest way to remember it is whenever your child's starting the school year, just subtract 2, and that's the year that you're going to be reporting on the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So this fall, when these forms come out, you're going to notice, if you have a junior right now, it's all about 2024. We're just getting to, today actually is the deadline, but the extension is October 15th or 18th. So by then you should have filed your taxes and you're going to have the information. And then you see 25 is 2023 and so on and so on. 22%, the highest end of what you make is assessed up to 47% after allowances. So that's a high percentage, right? So this, like I said, is the biggest driver. They're going off of AGI. There are some add-ins, but basically AGI is the biggest chunk of it. Students, on the other hand, they have to report income, but there's an allowance this year of about 7,000, and it's going to go up into the 9,000. So for most kids, it's not a big driver because they just don't make that amount of money. So good for people to know. If you have a sophomore right now, you are in the tax year that's going to be what we call your base year. So don't create capital gains you don't need to create. Don't take a distribution out of your 401k for this, that, or the other. I mean, if you have to, because you have a hardship or something, do what you need to do, but stuff that you don't need to do, because then you're going to find yourself having to reach out to colleges and explain why you had income that really was a one-off or wasn't really income. So just, you want to make your life simpler. You want to avoid that. So that's why it's good for you to be on here and to understand that. If you have a junior and your tax return in 2022 is elevated, don't worry about it. Yeah, you can work through it, but for people that haven't gotten to that yet, you can just try and avoid it if you can. All right. So that is need-based aid. So as I said earlier, over 50% of the people I work with, they don't have any need-based aid eligibility. You still want discounts. How does that work? Well, that's the merit scholarships that I talked about. So I will kick it over to Matt to chat about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we intentionally spend a fair amount of time with need-based financial aid because it's, I think, a little bit more complex, more layered. There's more rules, right? Where merit-based financial aid in most cases is a little bit more straightforward and cut and dry. And certainly there's a subjective element, so I don't want to oversimplify, but if we're not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid, that doesn't mean that we're ready to start paying again. Starting next year, there's going to be many colleges, I shouldn't say many, but I think in the double digits, maybe even dozens that are going to be $90,000, right, thereabout. So even if we're a family that has some means, has some resources, $90,000 a year, times 4 years, maybe times multiple kids is insane, right? So how can we get discounts, right? Because just because you're not eligible for need-based financial aid, that doesn't mean you can easily write a check for these insane amounts for these insane sticker prices without it having a significant impact. Okay. Or maybe even if we can, we just don't want it because it doesn't feel like a sound investment. So a couple things worth talking about here. I mean, the first one, maybe the most obvious one is, okay, well, I want to go find colleges that are going to give my kids merit-based scholarships, right? Who is going to look at my students' resume, profile, test scores, GPA, and just say, hey, we don't care how much our parents make. We want them to come to our school. Let's give them a financial incentive to come here, right? That's a merit-based scholarship. And we're going to go through some ways that you can figure out, well, what colleges will actually give my kid a scholarship and how much, and are they going to be a good fit for them, academically, geographically, et cetera. And I think the short answer to that for just about everybody on here, the answer is going to be yes, right? And I think a lot of, this was a little bit easier when we used to do these events live in front of an audience, but I think a lot of people, when we would talk about merit-based scholarships, there would be I'd see half of the audience kind of their eyes gloss over, and we get these questions all the time. Hey, my kid's not a great student. They don't have too many extracurriculars. They don't test well. They're not going to get a scholarship anywhere. And I push back on that pretty much universally. Like, and there are plenty of colleges that just as a part of their business model, everybody that gets accepted gets a scholarship, right? It's kind of good for business to say that our sticker price is this outrageous amount, but a part of their less public-facing, formula is that everybody gets a scholarship, essentially, right? So, and it doesn't mean they're bad schools by any stretch. So I think the takeaway is that I can pretty much guarantee that for everybody on here, there are colleges that are going to give your kids a meaningful scholarship, right? And it's about trying to figure out which of those also align with their interests. Okay. And again, I think this is especially important if you're a family that's not eligible for need-based aid or not too much aid. And even if you're a family that's eligible for the maximum amount of need-based financial aid, we're still focused on scholarships. We should still be looking at schools that are going to give us merit-based scholarship. So again, a couple other things that are noteworthy here before I jump in the platform. Number one, a lot of colleges, even if you want to be considered for merit-based scholarships, you have to complete the financial aid applications, right? So we'll run into plenty of families and say, hey, we're not going to do the FAFSA, or we're not going to do the CSS profile because we know we're not going to qualify for financial aid. And those families could very well be right. However, most of them don't know that some of the colleges that they're applying for or applying to are going to require these financial aid applications to be completed for merit-based scholarships. So it doesn't really make sense, but basically some of these schools, and we always use NYU as an example because it's just like a popular college, but they're one of these colleges, and they're not alone, that in order to be considered for scholarships, you have to complete the FAFSA, you have to complete the CSS profile, even if you're not even close to being eligible. Okay, so it's just an important seed that we like to plant as early as possible here. And another point that I think is important to emphasize at this stage, and again, in my experience, is not necessarily common knowledge, and that is the fact that there's about 100 colleges now, thereabouts, where scholarships do not exist, right? There's not one kid that goes to an Ivy League school that's there on a scholarship, none, right? So you could have and I know a lot of you are NSHSS families, so kind of by the definition of that, you have talented kids, right? You have really good students, and so I know there's some incredible talent, right, on that's on here tonight. But again, at these colleges, scholarships do not exist. So it's just really, really important to know that. So as you're putting your list of schools together, do you have a clear understanding, well, does my kid even have a shot at scholarships at these particular schools? So again, I just think it's important to flag that earlier in the process, and especially at this list building stage that most of you are in. And the other thing I'll say here that again, the timing is right. And that is for, as this list of schools is coming to fruition, again, I think this is especially important if we're not eligible for need-based aid, is to make sure that we're applying to competing colleges, right? Because these, yes, they're nonprofit institutions, right? But at the end of the day, they're multi-billion-dollar corporations, right? Lots of these colleges, and this is a massive business, right? This is big business. And just to reemphasize, yes, there's no Ivy League schools offer any scholarships, right? If anybody's getting a discount at Ivy League colleges, you are getting it because you're eligible for need-based financial aid, right? It doesn't matter. The most talented athletes, the most gifted musicians, the most incredibly intelligent kids, none of them are on a scholarship there, right? And that's not just Ivy League. I picked on those, but like there's almost 100 colleges. The NESCAC schools up by where I live in New England, right? The Williams and Amherst and Middlebury's, even in Tufts and Bates and Bowdoin and Colby, they don't offer scholarships. So anyways, we just want to be aware of that. But back to the point I was just stating is that we want to apply to competing colleges because oftentimes we can use that as leverage, right? And I'll kind of tease this right before we close tonight. Even though we're about a year away from this part of the process from the class 2024 folks. But it's something that we do with a ton of consistency is leverage schools against one another. And it's very common for us that we will recommend particular colleges for families that we work with, knowing they have zero intention of actually attending those colleges, but we're just going to use those as leverage. When we go back to the top choice for the schools that actually do want to attend, right? That happen to be their competitors. So yeah, somebody said they're just on a tour of Harvard and they said they offer scholarships. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. I promise they don't offer scholarships.
They might be calling, what they are doing is they're calling their need-based grants that I talked about at the beginning, scholarships.
Right.
So they are offering money.
Discounts.
So they're talking to you and trying to get you to think something.
And not that they're doing it in a misleading way. I think scholarships is an easier. I think it's an easier thing to understand, right? Do they offer discounts? Absolutely, they're the most generous college in the country.
Discounts.
If you are eligible for any type of need-based financial aid, Harvard is the most generous college in the country, number one. Right? And we have very good guys. We have very good access into Harvard specifically, right? One of our colleagues, one of our team members at College Aid Pro is a director of financial aid at Harvard Medical. Right. And so anybody can meet with anybody through our here. We'll have the opportunity to meet with them should you want to. Right. But it is and he'll assure you that they don't give any type. And he was a director at MIT before that. That's another one of our colleagues is the director of financial aid at MIT. And he's going to tell you that they don't offer scholarships. Right. So this is. And again, a little bit it is confusing, right? Scholarships, need-based financial aid, but again, the big takeaway here is scholarships is merit-based scholarships are given based on the student's credentials, right? But they don't exist at every college, whereas need-based financial aid is really based on the family's financial profile, right? Specifically the EFC or the SAI. So that's hopefully important, right? And there you go. So. Okay, Peggy, I can probably dip into.
Yeah, we've got a couple slides for you after that, but you're going to get the deck. So you don't, couple more merit slides for you, but you will see those when you get the deck.
Yeah, so for those of you guys, I know most of you have already set up your accounts, which is great. So you've already figured out what your EFC is, right? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, are you going to be eligible for financial aid or not? Need-based financial aid, right? Because we know we're all going to be eligible for merit-based scholarships. How much and at which colleges, right? So again, most of you have already created this account. If you haven't, if you want to just put that.
Yeah, I can't. Mine is only to hosts and panelists. My chat.
Do you need me, Mom? Do you need me to show you
go ahead and show me.
How to do this?
It's not there, dude. Ha ha! I told you. You gotta put it in there because I can't send the info to her. There you go. You see, I was right, people. Gotta love being together.
Yeah. So well, I stand corrected. Okay. So So again, you're looking at your EFCs at the top of the screen here, which is kind of the foundational number in determining your eligibility for need-based financial aid or lack thereof. Peg didn't share this at the top, and it was really by design. There's a couple different EFCs and soon to be just 2 EFCs. So I'll just focus on these 2. And we don't share that right away because it's confusing enough with all these acronyms and all this new terminology, and it's changing. And so we do our best to kind of layer in the different layers here, I guess, right? But most colleges and just about every public college uses what's called the federal EFC. They only require the FAFSA, right? They only have one financial aid application, and most colleges use this federal EFC. A lot of colleges, and a lot of them that happen to be the more name brand type of colleges, these first 3, for example, Amherst, Boston University, NYU, they use something called the institutional EFC. There's a couple of big differences here between those 2, but the main ones, and the reason why this number is there's a huge delta between the 2, is that most institutional EFC schools, number one, if you're a homeowner, they consider your home equity to be fair game to varying degrees, okay? And they also, the other thing here is that if you're a 2 household family, so if you are divorced or separated, they're going to require the financial information from both households, and they're going to consider it when determining your need-based financial aid eligibility. So for this particular family, this is a Massachusetts family, but they're a 2 household family, right? The parents are divorced and they're also homeowners. So that's why the EFC is so much higher here, okay? I told you, for the most part, I just told you a lot more than you need to know. What I want you guys focused on, especially at this stage of the game, is not the sticker prices of these colleges, but how much are you going to be expected to pay? And there's a couple takeaways here. Number one, in general, sticker prices are deceiving, they're misleading, and they have very little to do with how affordable or not a college is going to be for your family, right? And for example, this is a very kind of common setup or list of colleges. This is an actual list of colleges, right? Where a family might be really kind of concerned about the cost of college, right? Which I know many of you are. And so you just tell your kids, hey, you're only applying to state schools. You're not applying to these crazy $85,000 schools, whatever. But that's oftentimes it's counterintuitive, but that's oftentimes a strategy that's going to end up costing you to pay more for college, right? You see Penn State here. It's way less than BU or NYU from a sticker price standpoint, but they don't give money, right? And UC Santa Barbara, they don't give money, right? So you're going to be paying full rack rate there. Even a UMass Amherst, like I said, this is a Massachusetts resident, and they're going to get a little bit of a merit-based scholarship at UMass because this is a really smart kid, but it's still going to be more affordable to go to the $86,000 Amherst College, right? In the same town, right? In the same college town in Western Mass. So, again, the takeaways here are just that don't put your list of schools together based on the sticker prices, and have a good idea of where you fall in this financial aid spectrum as you're building this list at a minimum. So let's look at an example or 2. Oh, what happened there? Sorry about that, guys. But what I want to do is let's get some chatter going again. Why don't you guys throw out some names of actual colleges that you want to apply to, or thinking about touring or have toured? Put a couple of names in the chat, and we'll take a look here. So I just saw Carnegie Mellon. How's this for Carnegie Mellon? I actually met with a family the other day. The kid had a perfect SAT and perfect ACT, valedictorian, perfect GPA, waitlisted at Carnegie Mellon. Can you believe that? Get over yourself, Carnegie Mellon. Yeah. But I mean, that's obviously an amazing school, but I'm just, I was shocked at that particular.
Sounds like my credentials.
It does. That's what it reminded me of. Mrs. Cornell over here, by the way.
Those were not my credentials. Yeah. I am very much joking.
But if we can take a look at any of these schools to see, well, why did we get a discount, right? And if you guys remember those EFCs from the dash, deduct the EFC, soon to be SAI, from the cost of attendance, and then we see how much need-based financial aid we're eligible for. Well, Carnegie Mellon, obviously wildly expensive, but they're good in terms of meeting need-based financial aid, right? You can see here, they meet 99% of need on average. Again, as you kind of drill down into this platform, we can give you more context in terms of the why, if you want it. And again, don't confuse yourself. I just want you to focus on what's this school going to cost you. Let me look at a couple others here, and I appreciate all the tons of recommendations. So Salve Regina, let's look at Salve. Salve's a little, this will be an interesting one. So this is a little Catholic school, very good nursing program, beautiful location in Newport, Rhode Island, which is incredible if you've never been to Newport. You know, we can see here, we're going to be eligible for need-based financial aid. This kid's also going to get be eligible for a $26,000 merit-based scholarship, but they will not get both. It's very rare that a college will do what's called stacking need-based financial aid and merit-based scholarships. Even if you're eligible for both, typically what happens is that you will get the larger of those two numbers, okay? And that will drive you down, we kind of indicated by bolding it here, to your expected net cost. Now, another cool thing about the platform here is for every college in the country, we have every single scholarship that they offer, and we're really good at projecting, well, how much is your kid going to get, right? And usually, again, if you want that context as to the, well, why, you know, we'll show you, well, here's the average GPA and test scores of the school. So usually it kind of makes sense, like, okay, I see why, you know, you're projecting that my kid's going to get 26K at this particular school. So I think that's an important point here. Another thing of note is merit-based scholarships, we can pretty much set our watch that they're going to be there for all 4 years, whereas need-based grants can change. If income goes up or down, the need-based grants, and we have to reapply every single year, will go up and down proportionally to that. So it's just important to note, listen, if your income stays about the same, your financial situation stays about the same, these need-based grants will stay about the same. But if you have some big changes, well, there could be big changes to that as well, whereas the merit-based scholarship, we can feel pretty good. That's going to be flatlined across the board for all 4 years. So there's a lot more to unpack with the platform itself, but I think for right now, Peggy, we should probably
all right,
on to the next.
All right, let me share my screen again here. A lot of great questions, guys.
Great questions, keep them coming.
Typing away here, great stuff. Okay, so that's merit. So we're kind of talking through that. Now there were some questions, and I'm going to get into a little bit more. Those are a couple of the merit slides I told you we're going to get you. So, all right, now we understand the discounting, where discounts come from. So how do you apply for financial aid? So there's two different forms. There's the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and the CSS Profile. And some of you were already asking me questions. You will submit the FAFSA every year. Just like Matt just said, they need to assess your need-based eligibility every year. So if you're in sales, you have a great year, you have a not so great year, people in COVID had not as good years, your need-based package could change. You are going to submit it every year. A lot of times you're going to submit the CSS profile every year. Depends on the college. Not all of them are the same. So as it says here, unfortunately, most of these schools do everything differently across the board. One of the main things is the deadline to submit enrollment deposits is May 1, but pretty much everything else can be different from school to school. And the deadlines are really important. I answered a question. There's application deadlines. Then there's also financial form deadlines, financial aid form deadlines, different deadlines. They're related because it depends on how you apply for admission. If you're applying what's called early decision, you're going to have an earlier deadline for your financial aid form. So, but you've got to, if your child is not good at deadlines and turning things in on time at school, you got to be all over them, and you got to be a part of this, because it could be a lot of money out of your pocket if you miss deadlines and you're eligible for need-based aid. You're giving the college an opportunity to say, hey, you missed the deadline, we're not going to give you as much money. And you don't want to do that, obviously. So as it says in the bottom corner here, it's really your child's responsibility / you to stay on top of this. And if you're applying to 9 or 10 schools, you got to keep track of all this stuff, because colleges, they'll ping you when you haven't sent stuff in, but it might not be before the deadline, and they might only communicate with your child. So if they're not big on emails and looking at their email, whatever email gets created to deal with this whole college process, they need to stay on top of it. Every school in the country almost requires the FAFSA. Then there's about less than 300, mostly private, but there's a few state schools in there, Michigan, William and Mary, UVA, UNC, Chapel Hill, that also require the second form, which is called the CSS Profile, not instead of the FAFSA, but along with it. And then they use the CSS Profile to give out their endowment money for the need or the merit. So keep that in mind, okay? So it's not instead of the FAFSA. So let's get in the weeds a little bit more. And I'm sorry, I will fix this. The deadline, I don't know how this happens, but it's a slide deck. I've updated this, but now it's not updated.
Irresponsible.
I'm being irresponsible. Thank you, colleague. The deadline, we don't know exactly that are going into play. What Student Aid and the Department of Ed came out and said about a month ago, this is bothering me so much, I'm going to change it as I talk to you guys, sorry, not December 1. All they've said is December 2023. So we don't know if it's going to be the first. We're in our blogs because we'll let you know as soon as we know. But it's no, and then we'll figure out what that means as far as deadlines to get packages, because the colleges aren't going to have your FAFSA. They can't give you a package without that FAFSA. Most of the other stuff here, the other two bullets, I've already talked about the base year. Slept the most nights, spent the most time. That is changing. So it's a little bit, it's still a planning opportunity.
Saying our audio is bad. Thanks, guys. Give us a second. Anything better?
Can you hear us now? Okay, that's better. Everybody's saying yes. Okay.
I repeat the last 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, I will.
That's an eternity.
I'll just basically the FAFSA goes live in December 2023. That's all we know. This is a 1-year change because they're putting in these changes that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That's what I was saying. The other piece that's new on this slide is that if you are a 2-household family, only one parent submits the FAFSA, and that's the parent that is the custodial parent. If you are remarried, you will be submitting the financials with your new spouse. And somebody asked me that. So it will be both of you, but the non-custodial parent will not submit financials, will not be on the FAFSA. The custodial parent is defined as the parent that provided the most support, financial support. So this is a planning opportunity, right? It might not just be the person who pays the child support. You can throw that in the mix. It's also if the student lives 90% of the time with the custodial parent and you're paying a mortgage and electric and water and you're paying for soccer and violin, really think about all the things you're paying. You want to be honest, but if the parent, the household that has the better income and assets, meaning lower, to be in need-based eligibility, if you can make that the custodial parent while being honest, that's what you're going to want to do. So that's the new rule. It used to be where the student slept literally the most nights, spent the most time. And the one thing you need to do before you submit the FAFSA, you can do it tonight, you can do it this summer, is create what's called an FSA ID, a Federal Student Aid ID, Aid ID. And basically you're going to go, there's the website, make sure you're on that website because you're going to share your social security number, your birthday. They're going to make sure you are who you are, and then you're going to get a username and password. Your child needs to do it, the student that's submitting the FAFSA, and whatever parent's going to own this part of the process. And then keep that because you're going to need it every year. And that's how you electronically sign the FAFSA. That's all it's used for. The student can log in with it. the parent will never log in with it, or else the parent's the student, and then you're just submitting it electronically with that. So that's a little to do, not a big deal that you have to do before submitting the FAFSA. This next slide, this fall, we will get in the weeds with you guys about how to submit these forms. We'll literally do line by lines. So this is, we're giving you this, you're going to see this again, and we're going to go over it in detail. Today, we're not going to spend the time to go over this in detail, so we have time to cover other things. But this fall, before you submit forms, we'll cover that. Okay, so now on to the second form, the CSS profile.
Yeah, so this one, I mean, this one I think is what really makes parents pull their hair out, right? This is the form that, again, like we talked about, at a meaningful amount of colleges, especially when we talk about the more popular colleges. This is the form that's required in addition to the FAFSA, and really the only one that matters when determining need-based financial aid. Much more invasive, much more labor intensive. You know, our colleague, our buddy, one of my best buddies, Bill Rabbit, always says you can get through the FAFSA with a glass of wine or two. You're going to need at least a whole bottle to get through the CSS profile.
Guys, remember, put your questions in the chat, because I mean, the Q&A, I can't even respond in the chat because I'm an alternate host. So I'm looking at your questions and I can't even respond. So please put them. I just want to read this though. One dad wrote in and said, so I should divorce my wife and both move into low-income housing.
Somebody's paying attention. Somebody's paying attention.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and I can tell Peggy's starting to get mad. So you guys make sure you put those questions in the Q&A because it gets ugly fast. Thank you. So anyways, yes, the CSS profile is a beast. And listen, like I mentioned, there's a lot of financial aid counselors currently employed, directors, and have spent their whole careers in financial aid that are on our team. So we have this really unique intel into the world of the colleges, I guess. And I'm not saying that any of the particular colleges that are employing our our team members do this, and I can say certainly not the Harvards and the MITs of the world, but there are plenty of colleges that by design make this process of applying for aid and appealing for more money more difficult because people bow out. So I share that partly to just help create a mindset for you guys that as you're struggling through this, and at some point everybody's gonna just get incredibly impatient and want to give up, you have to persevere through, right? Because again, colleges kind of win with many families just by kind of getting them to self-select and voluntarily bow out, and therefore guarantee that they're not going to be eligible for any type of need-based aid and maybe merit-based aid. It's one of those colleges. So I don't want to scare you too much, but I think the FAFSA is relatively easy to complete. It's going to be even easier next year. But the CSS profile is kind of earns their reputation of being a huge pain. And then there's some kind of nuanced questions like, how much can you pay a year for college, right? I know a lot of families lose sleep over how to answer that question, the right way. But back to the divorce situation that Peggy talked about, because we got a ton of questions about it in a few different senses. Colleges that only require the FAFSA starting next year, it's only the parent that provides the most financial support completes the FAFSA. Parent or parents, if they're remarried, and you guys are going to pay attention to what we're telling you, and you're going to be smart and put yourself in a position that the family with the least income, the least assets is going to be the one that provides the most financial support. So you're eligible for the maximum amount of financial aid. Okay, you're just going to be smart about that. Okay, a lot of these colleges, the vast majority of colleges that require the CSS profile, they need each household, if you're a 2-household family, to complete the CSS profile. You'll complete your own, so you won't see one another's. Your ex-spouse won't see your financial information. You won't see theirs. Okay, but they're going to require it from both households. I had a few people write in, well, my ex-spouse or the father of my or the mother of my child, okay, is completely out of the picture, or they're not willing to cooperate. Of course, this happens, more often than we would all like, but it's something that colleges deal with every single year, many times over, right? And this is, I think, a little bit of a painful, a little bit unfair part of the process for these types of families, because technically that information is required. And of course, there are many of you that cannot ever get it, even if you wanted to, for any number of reasons. But you need to contact each of those colleges that are requiring it. And you're going to have to go through a process that's called applying for what's called a non-custodial waiver, which essentially allows you to, I shouldn't say allows you, obligates you to air your dirty laundry and kind of say, hey, here's the situation in our family. And they kind of want all the gory details. They're going to put it in front of a committee and hopefully say, you know what, we totally get it. We hear you. We're sorry you're going through that. Don't worry about it. We're not going to require that CSS profile from that household, from that parent. And we're only going to require it from you. And we're going to evaluate your aid eligibility just based on you. And, but it's something that it's a little bit labor intensive because you have to contact each college specifically that you're applying to that's requiring that information from the other household. And again, I think they make you jump through more hoops than I think is fair.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
That's another cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet.
We'll go over that in the fall.
But yeah, and again, you guys are going to have the deck. You're going to have the recording. So I think you've heard us tease this a couple times, right? But there's some massive changes coming to you guys, the class 2024. You all are the guinea pigs. There haven't been this big of changes in higher education in a couple decades anyways. Some good, some bad, right? Some ugly, you would say. Great news, there's going to be more money for the families that need it the most, right? So I think that's something that universally, all of us, all of you can feel good about, right? Good. The families that need the most help to send their kids to college are going to have it, right? The forms getting easier, and families that have no or little to no resources are going to have more money, and it's going to be easier to navigate the process and make it more affordable, right? And nobody is pushing back on that, okay? Everybody's celebrating. Challenges, and I think to me, the writing on the wall is very clear, that how the Department of Education is making this happen is they're saying, well, the money's not coming out of our pocket, it's the federal government. They're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. So in order to put more money in this bucket, let's take it from some other places. So divorce separated families, right? Now they want the family that provides the most financial support, with the theory being that those families are going to have the higher EFCs, you're going to get less financial aid, right? So we're going to take a little out of you. Small business owners, it used to be for a very long time, if you had less than 100 employees, they didn't hold any business assets or investments against you, not calculated in the equation or the worth of your business. That's going away. So now all small businesses are going to have to pay for them. The vast majority of folks that own small businesses, even if they're sole proprietors, are going to have to pay more for college, right? I think the most egregious one is that families that have multiple kids in college right now, whether they're twins like Peggy or some folks on here, or even if you're separated, I saw one family that has almost triplets, right? They're boom, 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 back to back to back. They're not giving a break for families that have multiple years in college, the Department of Education, the federal government. So now, which is, again, I don't want to go on my soapbox too much. It's ridiculous, but I do have an ask of you guys, right? And actually, I guess I'll have to show. I'll go grab this myself, Peggy.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's me. But we started a petition right when this new rule change came out. We hated a lot of these rule changes, of course, as soon as they came out. And we started a petition. We've got just under 66,000 signatures. I just put it in the chat. It takes less than 30 seconds to sign. Please sign it. Better yet, please share it, right? Because we've got 66,000 signatures, but decision makers, folks on Capitol Hill that could maybe prevent some of these really bad FAFSA changes from happening, are telling us you got to get 100,000 signatures before you're going to get in front of a room of folks that can actually make decisions or move the needle here. And we're running out of time, but we're over 2/3 of the way there. We're about 2/3 of the way there. So please sign it, please share it. It's helping you. If it's not helping you directly, it's helping people you care about. If you would.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I should have put that slide up.
What's that?
I'm so deep into my questions. I should have had this slide
you're
up.
providing value. It's
Yeah,
okay. I see you
there we
providing
go.
value over there.
All right.
Okay, so very quickly, again, Peggy, if I go over a minute on the slide, Peggy's gonna give me a dope slap. So I'm not
And
gonna
that's
do
easy
that.
for
But
me to do.
getting looking down the road a little bit, I just like to plant the seed early and often. When you start to get offers from these colleges, it doesn't mean that's a take it or leave it situation. And there is a method to the madness in terms of going back to these schools and squeezing more juice out of them. But one thing that happens early in the process that I talked about earlier is applying to a list of schools in which you can create leverage among them with, right? That happens at the beginning, not at the end. So again, I just like to plant that seed. Peg and I, like we said, we provide education through every step of this process. This appeal piece of it is probably my favorite part, but you guys are a couple steps away outside of building that list. Right?
But there were a few people that put in questions that I responded to and said, hey, somebody passed away or I've retired. Those are, yeah, that is when you should be appealing. So if it's something that's coming up, stay tuned. We can be very helpful to support you on that in one-on-one meetings or just through our webinars. But there's a change in your financial situation. They're going to make you report on 2022, but you know 2022 was way higher than your reality. That should be your trigger that like, hey, Peg and Matt told me I should be thinking about appealing. So that's the key. That's the key takeaway. How to do it, that's a whole hour webinar in and of itself, literally. Let me I
guess I can share here, right?
There you go.
Okay, so actually one thing I want to make sure I share with you guys, a couple things I want to make sure I share with you guys. The first one is what I would recommend. I'm pretty psyched about this and I'm incredibly confident in the deliverable, but especially for you families that, again, I know most of you that are started here, we have this of our boot camp for families that are getting ready to tackle this process for the first time. It's 4 days in a row, hour each day during lunchtime, or at least on the East Coast. So it'll be 12 Eastern time, Monday through Thursday. And we got some really, really good sessions. The first session is me and Peggy, very similar to today. So you guys could even skip that, still register for the week, and they're all going to be recording. You're going to get the slide decks. But then the second, so the first day is like, how do I maximize financial aid and scholarship? So we get then we have a day dedicated to, okay, should I take the ACT? Should I take the SAT? What do I need to know about test optional, right? And what does that impact? And again, I just put this link in the chat, so I recommend that you register. And then we spend a whole day going with a couple of the experts on our team over the Common App and your essay, right? What do we need to know about each of these two pieces? And then on the last day, it's myself and Brian Ford on our team. And Brian Ford, he's been kind of in his entire career in this college admissions world. He's read over 60,000 admissions applications. Been the assistant director at Boston University, and then in the UC system as well. So he's been most of his career on that side of the fence. So he knows what works, what doesn't, and he's pretty remarkable. So anyways, I would recommend this as a great week. And again, bring your kids if you want, or just have the recordings, because I think we check all the major buttons as well. So firm recommendation that you take advantage. Okay. And that kind of piggybacks on I guess more overarching Peggy and I will say this every time we do a presentation because it's true, and this is something I kind of stole from Peg, but it's because I believe it genuinely in the same way that she does, is that our job when we get in front of you guys, I think especially for the first time, but I think it applies every time we get in front of you guys, our obligation and job is that you continue, you take some action, whatever that is, and you continue to stay engaged, because we know that what usually where there's not the best end result is when, and it's so easy to do, folks kind of slip off at any stage and put your head in the sand and go back to all the other priorities of which you have a bazillion, right? But if you can just kind of follow us in some capacity and allow us to shepherd you through this thing, you're going to have better end result, right? And there's kind of three buckets that we, and of course we're overreaching here in terms of our generalizations, but three buckets that we will place folks in. And you could probably put yourself in one, or maybe you're straddling some lines here, but we know who the DIYers, right? Of just like, I'm all over this. And I don't want to pick on engineers, but it just tends to be a lot of engineers or those
They like
types of
their
like,
spreadsheets.
I love my spreadsheets. I love my research. I want to learn everything. Or data scientists, we learned that's a big one.
Yeah.
I take pride. I am just going to get my PhD in this thing, and I'm going to be all over it. And you know who you are. And we're not going to try to talk you out of it. And we have a lot of great free resources, right? You have the free version of our software, of our platform. We do office hours where every other week it's a couple of us that are just showing up to do Q&A. Our Facebook group is moderated by our experts. It's you guys, an awesome community, kind of all going through this whole thing. Our CAP YouTube channel is incredibly robust. You've got enough free resources to be successful here. And like I told you, we reward our live audience. So we have a couple coupon codes that'll only be good for tonight, right? And that's just kind of our deal. Your buddies that had to drop off earlier that couldn't make it tonight, we'll give them a little bit of a discount or a coupon code tomorrow and stuff, but it's not going to be at these levels, right? And the other thing is, and you'll hear me explain this in a second, some of our roster for the 2024 is starting to get a little bit, it'll be full soon, but not for this part of it, right? This part of it, your kind of middle folks are who we call kind of like our DIYers, but I just want someone to look over my shoulder a little bit, like help me figure out where should I start building this college list. I'm a business owner. What do I need to know there? I don't think I need too much help, but I would like to use a professional as a sounding board a little bit here. In order to do that, just upgrade in our software. I'll show you how to do that in a second, right? Sign up for the Valedictorian package, use this coupon code tonight, SAT20, and you get 20% off, right? So and what you'll get is an hour with one of our experts. It could be me, Peg, anybody on our team. You heard me mention the guys at MIT, Harvard. You're going to be in great hands no matter what, okay? If you're not, you don't feel like you got any value, ask for your money back, you'll get a full refund, right? And this is being recorded. This is me putting my money where my mouth is. But in addition to that hour, you're going to have unlimited access to all the bells and whistles of our software for a year, okay? No brainer, in my opinion. Then there's a percentage of you, and this isn't for everybody, that are just like, somebody take the wheel, right? Like, I am not a DIYer, or just like, I don't have the expertise to do this. I don't have time to figure out how to master it, and I don't want to screw it up, right? And we have a couple different options there. Again, or I have a complicated situation. We're divorced, or we're going through a divorce, or I'm a business owner, and I'm a property owner, and I know all the complexities that come with that. And there's a couple different options we have, right? If you just want help on the financial aid side, we have an option there. If you just want help for admissions, we have an option there, and then kind of a combo. And how I articulate this, like if you just want financial aid help, I almost look at that as we're guiding your parents, right? Or I'm sorry, we're guiding you, assuming we're talking mostly parents, which I know we are. We're guiding the parents through it. And just to give you a quick idea of what that looks like, right? We help you build this list of colleges to make sure that we have that leverage, to make sure that we have cost-effective options on there. We manually do the financial aid forms for you. We do the FAFSAs, we do the profiles, we do the non-custodial profiles. We get in the weeds in terms of appealing, negotiating for more money, right? And we help you figure out how to pay this bill, okay? But we're gonna guide you and drag you through this whole process. You don't have to worry about deadlines and who needs what forms and when are they due and that whole deal. Sorry about that. Whereas the admissions services that we offer, I look at that as more of like, we're dragging your kids through it, right? We're making sure that they're ahead of all their deadlines with the Common App, with the supplemental app. We make sure that we know, well, who needs a supplemental app? Do they require an additional essay? How do we nail the essay? If you're going to be interviewing, which is way more popular now, especially with test optional, how do we nail the essay? So we have, again, Brian Ford and Dan Bizik on our team that are admissions expert. And I look at that as we're really managing the student and we are dragging them through that process, okay? And you don't have to be kind of the bad guy, right? You don't have to be the one cracking the whip on the student. So again, I think families know if they want help there, they have it. And then I think, to me, the best value that you're going to find in working with our team is going to be the financial aid and the admissions help, right? We have we're guiding the parents through the financial aid piece. We're guiding the student separately, and usually it's two different professionals on our team through the admissions piece, right? Obviously, it's a lot of money. It is not for everybody. It is an investment, but again, I think I'm incredibly confident and genuine that you're going to see a no-brainer ROI on that. So that's what I'd recommend. Don't overthink it. Like this is we're talking about $90,000 a year for college. So when we look at it in terms of that, in terms of the ROI, we're going to be able to show you from a straight up financial standpoint, but also just like a quality of life and psychological standpoint, and allow you to enjoy the last year with your kid, as opposed to, worrying about this stuff too much. Do it, right? And again, it's a $500 discount tonight. So again, is it a lot of money? Hell yeah, it is. I totally.
Guys, just the main thing is do something. Somebody asked, what is the YouTube link? You're going to get this link in the deck, but if you click on the CAP YouTube channel, that's going to take you, it's going to be a live link. So you'll have it. And no charge for the boot camp. That was another question. And I think there's still some confusion around the forms. The FAFSA, you can't, on these forms, you can't say, oh, my wife makes a lot more than I do. Can I just submit her income? It's your adjusted gross income. So if you're married, you're going to be submitting both. You don't get to pick and choose. It's if you're a 2-household family, that's where you're not submitting both biological parents on the FAFSA. Right. So I think there was a little confusion there, but just as far as in closing, because we're a little bit over here, so I appreciate you guys hanging on. Just do something. Take, from parent to parent. If you're not sure, keep staying on the free side. I will be shocked if you don't go into our platform and book an hour. If you book an hour and you're like, this is too much, I do want Wake Me When It's Over, we'll comp you that hour and we'll let you sign up. So, but just move. I know it's super hard and people are busy, but, and as Matt said, we offer a nice discount to our people that are on live. Tomorrow there'll be a nice discount, but it won't be as much.
It'll be 200. It'll be $200 off instead of 500, and it'll be 10% off instead of 20%.
Yeah. So
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other last questions, guys? By the way,
I gotta say the Q&A is empty.
Outstanding audience tonight.
Yeah, you guys were great. You kept me busy. I'm getting carpal tunnel in my fingers. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And thanks, guys. Appreciate the kind words. And the link for boot camp again here.
And we'll make sure that should be that we should put that in our follow-up email too.
Right. We'll make sure that we get this in the follow-up email. Okay. The boot camp is.
And just stay tuned for upcoming webinars.
Yeah. Sorry. There's no.
Oh, you know what, Matt? Just quickly show, or you know what, I can hold on. I will show you how to book a meeting because we're getting these questions. So here's MyCAP, right? If yours probably says upgrade up here, you got to set up your account and then it'll say upgrade and you click there and then it will say valid. We call it valedictorian. That's what we call if you want to book an hour with us. That's what that's called. If you want to do Wake Me When It's Over, then you've got to click on the links. Did you put a link in there? Or something? Yeah. Yeah, because that isn't through the software. We always get that confusion. People are writing us saying, how do I sign up for Wake Me When It's Over? You don't do it.
Sorry, they wanted me to show that again too, but I'll walk through that again.
Yeah, but it's just up here in the top corner. If it says talk to an expert, you can book it. But don't forget to use your coupon. It'll say put in your promo code or coupon code, put that SAT20 in there. If it says upgrade or talk with an expert, and then you're good.
And then this is the link that I put in there again, guys. So these are all live links. So I put this link in here to this landing page. And if you want to go to any of the links, somebody asked me to show the Wake Me Up When It's Over link. You can go in there on your own, but this is our combo package here that has the financial aid side and the admissions.
Yeah, everything's in there. And
you just book it right through here. If you go to the bottom of the page, you book it through there, and then the coupon code again is SAT20.
And yes, you will get the video and the slideshow. You will get the recording and the deck tomorrow. But if you want to capitalize on the discount, you got to do that puppy tonight, because tomorrow it'll say SAT 10, like Matt said. So, all right. Well, we're almost 10 minutes over, buddy. I think we got to give these people a breather. So thanks for being here.
Everyone's not leaving.
I know.
Okay.
So-
Thank you so much, and hopefully, like we said, stay engaged in some capacity. And thanks for joining tonight. And no, we appreciate it, and hopefully get a chance to get in front of you.
No, you come over here. Come over here. All right. Have a great night, everybody. See you later.